It's over. The globalists just got sucker punched and they never saw it coming. Mark Carney, Canada's unelected progressive globalist puppet, just had a full-blown public meltdown on live television, guys. And the reason? President Donald Trump and Alberta might have just joined forces. Yep, you heard that right, guys. Trump and Alberta are teaming up. And what that means for the future of North America? Well, let me just say it's changing everything, because this is not just a political story. This is clearly a rebellion, a cross-border resistance against censorship, against globalism, and against the weaponized media. Today, guys, we're going to show you guys the bombshell private meeting that just happened at Mar-a-Lago between President Trump and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. We're going to break down Bill 54, the explosive law that guarantees Alberta's separation referendum in 2026. And guys, we're going to go ahead and roll back the tape. We're going to roll the tape on Mark Carney's unhinged speech where he essentially tries to ban American free speech from Canadian soil. You're not going to believe what this guy said about the seas of hate. But the biggest story here, really, it's the growing possibility that Alberta could leave Canada and join the United States. Guys, that's not a theory. This is actually coming straight from Alberta's leadership, and it has Washington, D.C. and Ottawa shaking. So buckle up, guys, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't just a political earthquake. This is the collapse of the Canadian deep state and the rise of a brand new alliance with Donald J. Trump at the center. And I promise you, at the end of this video, you're going to completely understand exactly why this meltdown from Mark Carney proves it's already too late to stop it. Later on, I also want to kind of share with you guys the exact moment that President Trump signaled support for Alberta's rebellion, the one new law that virtually guarantees Alberta's independence, and why President Trump's supporters are already joking about putting a 51st star on the American flag. Stay locked in, guys, because what happens next might just redraw the map. If you appreciate the daily news updates, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And for my Canadian brothers and sisters, let me know if you're Canadian watching the show. I love to know where you guys are from. So what if you're missing out on hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars just because you picked the wrong Medicare plan? Well, Leslie Taylor, she did, but she made a very simple call and is now saving $1,000 a year. Sharon Bertusik, she got dropped from Medicaid, but now Chapter has helped her get a new plan with $0 premiums, zero cost meds, and her copay got cut from $89 to $20. Guys, this ain't luck. This is exactly what happens when you have someone in your corner. So give our friends at Chapter a call at 909-563-8279 or hit them up on the web at askchapter.org/Ron. All right, guys, so let's break it down. Why is Alberta suddenly on fire? Why is the media panicking? Well, Mark Carney melting down and Trump supporters across North America are cheering like it's 4th of July? Well, guys, because something historic just happened, and it happened behind closed doors. Danielle Smith, the premier of Alberta, she took a trip to Mar-a-Lago and met directly with President Donald Trump. Now, think about that for a second, okay? Alberta is not just any old Canadian province. It's literally the economic engine of Canada. They provide over 90% of the nation's energy. They boast the highest GDP of any province, and they sit on more oil and gas than most European countries combined. And here's the kicker. They're also the most conservative region in the entire country, and they're done taking orders from globalist overlords like Mark Carney. So when Danielle Smith sat down with Trump, this wasn't just a local visit. This wasn't some social visit. This was a signal, a handshake, a warning shot. And immediately after that meeting, everything changed. Alberta ramped up talk of provincial sovereignty. They passed Bill 54. They're slashing the number of signatures needed to force a referendum on separation from Canada. And Mark Carney, the man, he just started spinning like a top, pushing hate speech laws, blaming America for polluting Canadian minds, and calling for sweeping social media crackdowns. Why? What's wrong with this guy? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he knows the truth. Alberta doesn't need Canada anymore. And more importantly, Alberta has options. And that's the scary part for Mark Carney. President Trump has already made it very clear. He supports energy independence. He supports free speech, anti-globalist populism, and local control over national mandates. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because those are exactly the values Alberta is fighting for. And now, millions of Trump supporters are openly backing Alberta online. Guys, the memes are everywhere. Add Alberta to the union, 51st state. Red Alberta, red hat, red wave. Danielle Smith is Canada's Ron DeSantis with grit. Guys, this is bigger than politics. This is a cultural revolution. Alberta is tired of playing for the failed politics of Ottawa. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not fair for Alberta to have to pay for Ottawa's shortcomings. They've already tried, I mean, so many different times. And they're tired of being vilified for using their own oil and gas. Like, why should they be punished for using their own resources? That's ridiculous. They're tired of having their own voices being censored, their businesses taxed, and their borders ignored. And they're watching what Trump did to DC and they're saying, hey, why not us? Right? I mean, for my Canadians, am I making sense here? Can I get an amen? Like, do you agree, disagree? And you know what? They're not alone. Even American conservatives, they're starting to say, maybe we don't need Canada, but maybe Alberta needs us. I mean, folks, the seeds have been planted. The handshake has happened. The Trump-Alberta alliance is real. And if you don't think that this scares the living daylights out of Mark Carney and the Canadian elites, wait until you see what, I don't know if I even want to share this, guys. I don't know if I want to share this with you guys. All right, wait until you hear what was said on live television. Guys, a speech so desperate, so panicked, he basically declared war on American free speech itself. I can't even make this stuff up. He called U.S. platforms seas of hate. He wants full-blown censorship of our content on their side of the border. So, of course, I'm going to go ahead and break down every word of that unhinged meltdown. So stick with me, guys, because you're going to want to see this. Anyway, so here's the thing, folks. This is where the mask slips. When President Trump and Danielle Smith were quietly forming one of the most powerful nationalist alliances on the continent, Mark Carney, Canada's unelected globalist in chief, went on live television. He completely lost it. He lost his ever-loving mind. And you're not going to believe what came out of his mouth. Now, I want to go ahead and quote it for you word for word. Large American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all forms. They're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. That's what he said, guys. And just like that, folks, he declared war on free speech. You see what's happening right here, right? Mark Carney, he can't stop Alberta. Mark Carney can't stop Trump. So he's trying to silence the voices that are fueling the rebellion. And so how does he plan on doing this? Easy. By labeling anything he doesn't like as hate speech. Not just in Canada, but even speech coming from Americans on American platforms. This is textbook globalist panic, guys. Redefine the words. Remember, they redefined what a recession was? They try to redefine what a woman was, right? Is control the narrative. This is what they do. Shut down the opposition. Classic. Let me be crystal clear. This isn't about hate. This is about power. Carney knows Alberta's rising. He knows their movement is spreading. He knows that if the people have the power to organize online, he loses everything. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just now joining it live, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We need your support. So instead of addressing Alberta's concerns, instead of debating Trump's ideas, he goes straight to the authoritarian playbook, guys. Censor, criminalize, and control. But here's the problem. Free speech isn't free speech unless it protects the speech you don't like, right? In the United States, we don't have a hate speech clause in the First Amendment because that's the exact excuse tyrants use to silence the dissent. You see what I'm saying? In Canada, Carney is now, he's making himself the judge, the jury, the executioner of what Canadians are allowed to say. Now, I'm not Canadian, but I'm willing to bet if I were, I'd be pissed off about that. I'd be feeling like you're taking my rights away. Now, folks, this is why Alberta wants out. And it's also exactly why President Trump's message is resonating north of the border like never before. And I've been getting so many comments from Albertans and other Canadians that are like, dude, screw this leadership here. Make us the 51st state. And so, we're just getting started too, because what Alberta just did legally is about to shake Canada down to its foundation, guys. I want to expose the bill that practically guarantees Alberta's 2026 separation referendum and the staggering poll numbers that show that this is not just a local movement anymore. It's national, it's political, and it's about to go global. All right, guys, so now that we've already seen Mark Carney try to censor the entire continent from behind a podium, let's talk about why he's panicking so hard in the first place. Because Alberta, well, they're not bluffing. They're not posturing. They're moving. So let me introduce you to Bill 54. This is the game-changing changing legislation that just dropped like a political nuclear bomb inside of Canada's parliament. What it does is Alberta just slashed the number of signatures needed to trigger a separation referendum from 600,000 down to 177,000. And let me tell you, Alberta's population, that's nothing. That's guaranteed. That means in 2026, Alberta will vote on leaving Canada. Not maybe, not someday. It is happening. Premier Danielle Smith didn't mince words either. She straight up said that if Albertans gather enough support, she will hold the vote. Period. No stalling, no delay, no compromise. And you want to know how the people feel about it? Well, try this on for size. 70% of Albertans say that they support or empathize with separation. And get this, 55% of Canadians nationwide say they understand why Alberta wants to leave. That includes progressives. Even Canadians who hate Trump are looking at Alberta and they're saying, you know what? I get it. And it's no mystery why. Alberta produces over 90% of Canada's energy. It has the highest GDP of any province, over $334 billion a year. And what does it get in return? Well, federal policies that attack its oil industry, a prime minister who lectures them about climate, and a censorship regime that wants to silence their political views. So ask yourself, if you were in Alberta's shoes, what would you do? This is why this rebellion is spreading like wildfire. It's not fringe anymore. It's not protest. It's a movement. And now that Alberta's passed Bill 54 and essentially set a date for the vote, there's really no turning back now. But it gets even deeper because guess who inspired the leak? This whole break free from the elite's energy. Yes, you guessed it, guys. Donald J. Trump. So I want to kind of try to connect the dots here between President Trump's media victories in the United States and the crumbling control of the Canadian state, their media. You're going to see exactly how Alberta is mirroring the MAGA movement and how President Trump's war against fake news has now gone international. Now, if you want to really understand why Alberta's rebellion is working and why Mark Carney's regime is spiraling, you got to look at the media meltdown that literally started right here in the United States. Okay? Because Donald Trump didn't just fight the media. He actually defeated them. You guys remember the $15 million settlement that Trump won against ABC News? Anybody remember that? Yes or no? That wasn't just a payout. That was like a kill shot. ABC settled quickly after George Stephanopoulos went on air and knowingly lied, falsely claiming Trump was found liable for rape, which was provably false. Now, President Trump took them to court and he won. And that sent a message not just to American media, but to state-run broadcasters in Canada too. Then came CBS. Trump sued them for $20 billion after they deceptively edited a Kamala Harris interview on 60 Minutes. Anybody remember that one? This lawsuit was also fairly devastating. CBS leadership resigned, heads rolled, careers ended. That's power. And just like that, state-funded media outlets like NPR and PBS, Trump cut them off. No more federal funding for biased news pretending to be public service. Now, what's happening in Alberta, right? The conservatives there, they're mirroring the Trump strategy. They're bypassing legacy Canadian media like CBC. They're taking their message straight to the people on YouTube, X, Rumble, and independent podcasts. Look at Joe Rogan. And just like the United States, Canadian state media cannot stop it. They cannot control the narrative anymore. They can't fact check their way out of this. And that, my friends, is exactly why Mark Carney is now screaming about hate speech and trying to regulate American platforms, because he knows his media machine's broken. He knows the people aren't listening to him anymore, and they're listening to each other. They're using their own brains. They're making their own decisions. They're thinking without being told how to think. The system is breaking. They don't want you to think on your own. They want to spoon feed you what they want you to think. In fact, one insider at CBC even admitted off camera, they've lost Alberta. The ratings are crashing. Their coverage is mocked online. They've been trumped. So here's the part they really don't want you to know, guys. Just like President Trump showed Americans they could stand up to media giants, Alberta is showing Canadians they can do the same. And this rebellion is growing despite the censorship, because of the censorship, in fact. And that brings us to the most dangerous part of all. All right, guys, so we're now essentially entering some dangerous territory here, because when governments start literally deciding what you can and cannot say, what kind of government is that, right? I don't want to even say the word here. I don't want to get demonetized or completely shut down here. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you can let me know. This is not about keeping you safe. It's about keeping themselves in power. And right now in Canada, this is exactly what's happening. So let's rewind to Mark Carney's live speech, the one that we covered earlier. He stood there on national television and labeled American platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook as seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all forms. And what was his solution? My government will act. That wasn't a warning shot. That was a full-blown declaration of war on free speech. Let's be clear, guys. There is no clause in the U.S. Constitution that says you have free speech unless someone finds it offensive. The First Amendment exists precisely to protect controversial, unpopular, disruptive ideas, the very kind that globalists hate. But Carney doesn't care because his goal isn't to protect Canadians, it's to silence Canadians, especially Albertans, especially conservative Albertans, okay? Because what's the one thing that's stopping Alberta's movement from exploding into a full national revolt? Communication, community, the ability to organize and mobilize. And Carney wants to shut it all down before the 2026 referendum. So just like they tried to do to Trump, just like they tried to do to you, ban the speech, cancel the voices, smother the momentum, you see? But here's what they don't realize. Censorship doesn't kill rebellion. It fuels it. The more they try to silence rebellion, the more they try to silence Alberta, the louder Alberta gets. The more they restrict platforms, the faster independent media explodes. You see what happens? It's like shaking up a bottle of soda. You know, the more they try to contain it, the more the lid wants to blow off. Alberta's rise didn't happen in spite of censorship. It happened because of censorship. And now the countdown's on because Alberta's not just fighting back online. They're preparing for something very real. A legally binding vote to walk away from Canada forever, guys. You know, you better believe Trump and the rest of the world are watching this. And that's what I really want to talk about right here. Like, this is it, guys. You know, folks, everything we talked about, the private Trump meeting, the media takedown, the censorship panic, it all leads to this moment because Alberta, they're not just talking anymore. They're making it official. Ladies and gentlemen, less than 2 weeks ago, Alberta passed Bill 54, a law that lowered the required signatures for a separation referendum from 600,000 all the way down to only 177,000. That's not a small change. That is a green light. And if you don't think that they're going to get those signatures, just ask yourself this. 70% of Albertans say that they either support or understand separation. Over 50% of Canadians nationwide say they empathize with Alberta's position. And let's not forget, Alberta already has the energy. Alberta already has the GDP. Alberta already has the will. All they needed was a path, and now they have it. Premier Danielle Smith, I keep saying Daniel, it's Danielle. Danielle Smith herself actually confirmed it. If Albertans gather the 177 signatures, she will hold the vote. And the clock is ticking. Now, I really should ask you guys. I already know I got a boatload of Canadians watching the show right now. I'm pretty sure, right? If you're Canadian, I want to know, would you be among those 177 signatures that would be needed to separate? I think it's pretty clear, guys. The clock is ticking toward 2026. So what happens if they vote yes? Think about this. Alberta breaks away from China. Alberta breaks away from Canada. They keep their oil. They keep their power. They keep their money, right? They adopt a new trade alignment and maybe, just maybe, they become the 51st state. Is that really too far-fetched? I mean, I don't think that's too far-fetched to believe. Not if you've been paying attention. Danielle Smith already met with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago just like a couple weeks ago. Alberta's values line up perfectly with America First, yes? And Mark Carney's regime is unraveling by the hour. Don't be surprised if 2026 becomes the new 1776. Only this time, it's happening in the north. And here's the twist people are not ready for. If Alberta goes, others may follow. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even provinces in the east. This isn't just Alberta's story anymore. This is a continental realignment. And it's funny, like, you know, we were talking about, could Canada become the 51st state? Canada could become the 51st state, one province at a time. Let me know if you believe, if you think that this is possible. So here's what I want to know from you. Should Alberta join the United States? Do you think Trump and Danielle Smith are working on something behind the scenes? And if Alberta votes to leave Canada in 2026, should America welcome them with open arms? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys, because this story is not going away. In fact, it's only just getting started, and I'm going to stay on top of this. You best believe. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve, like this video, share it, subscribe, follow me on X, on Twitter. I've even got a Facebook group down below. I'd love for you guys to follow me over there as well for real-time updates on Alberta's next move, Trump's next rally, reality, and of course, the unraveling of the globalist script. Guys, the leaderships, the elites are losing control, people are waking up, and history, well, it's about to be rewritten. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below.